lovely students, how are you all? A very hearty welcome to this mind-blowing platform, Physics Wallah. My name is Nupur Sharma and today we are going to do the sermon at Banaras. Okay, we are going to do this chapter, a beautiful chapter it is, wherein we are going to, learn the realist, the real reality of life, what is the most real thing about life, which is the most inevitable thing of life, an event that we cannot actually avoid, that we are going to learn here. Okay, but before doing that, we are going to understand the meaning of the title, that is the sermon at Banaras. What do we mean by that? The sermon basically means a lecture. Okay, it's kind of a lecture. It's a religious preaching. You know what's a preaching? Preaching is when someone preaches you, or they are basically the monks and sadhus that gives you the preaching and everything. Now, this sermon, this lecture is giving at Banaras. It is being given at Banaras. You know what? Where is Banaras? Banaras is a very, very beautiful, city in India. It's located in UP, and it's also called the spiritual capital of India. Spiritual capital of India. It's the holiest of the places where river Ganges, it flows, and where people, they bathe there, and they think that when we take bath in Ganga, all our sins are, washed away. So it's a very beautiful place, it's a very spiritual place, and when a sermon is given at Banaras, it's considered to be very holy. But what do we learn in this chapter? It's very important, okay? We are going to learn an inevitable event that we cannot dodge, basically. So what we are going to do in this chapter, we are going to have an overview, then line by line explanation, word meanings, important key points, and yes, in the end, we are going to discuss a question from the sample paper. Okay, your homework from the sample paper. Okay, question from the sample paper we are going to discuss. Now, first, let's look at the overview. The story, the sermon at Benares, highlights the early life of Gautama Buddha, who left all his amenities and worldly pleasures behind and went on for searching for salvation. Now, salvation. Okay, and we are talking about Gautama Buddha. Okay, we are talking about Buddhism. When we talk about Buddhism, all we think about is, meditation. It's all about meditation. It's all about just leaving the world behind. If you know about Buddhist monks, you know that they renounce everything. They renounce all the worldly pleasures. They leave each and everything behind. And all they are looking for is salvation. And you know what is salvation? Salvation is mukti. Okay, although mukti is a Hindu word, it's a Hindi word, but you know the meaning of mukti. Mukti means to, leave everything behind and meeting with God. It's called salvation. Salvation is when you leave everything and you are united with the Almighty. Now, it is about Gautama Buddha. We are going to learn that how Gautama Buddha became Gautama Buddha. He was not Gautama Buddha from the very starting. He was not a Buddhist from very starting. How he became a Buddhist. How he left all the amenities. He had a lot of amenities. We are going to learn that he had a lot of facilities. He had everything. He had all the facilities. He had all the comforts of life, as we can see. He had each and everything. He had all the worldly pleasures. He had everything that, a person wants in his life. He had everything, but he left everything behind. What was the reason behind that? That we are going to get to know. And after 7 years of wandering, what he did, that he wandered for 7 years. He just went here and there, helter and skelter, and he attained enlightenment. He attained enlightenment in the end. How did he find this enlightenment? Enlightenment basically means awakening. Awakening. When your spiritual eyes open, okay, the eyes that we look on, we look at everything worldly. We do not have, we are not enlightened basically. We do not know anything. But when we know everything, when we know all the secrets of the world, we know that what is life, what is death. That is what we are going to learn here. We are going to learn here that how he attained all these things, and that too sitting under a peepal tree at Bodh Gaya. How did he reach Bodh Gaya? How did he sit under the tree? And how this all happened? Now, let's find it out. Gautam Buddha, he was born in 563 BC, okay, and he died in 483 BC. He began life as a prince named Siddhartha Gautam. So basically, Gautam Buddha was a prince. He was prince in northern India. At 12, he was sent away for schooling in the Hindu sacred scriptures, and 4 years later, he returned home to marry a princess. Basically, we are learning about the background of Gautam Buddha. Gautam Buddha was born as a prince. Okay, he was just a prince. He was the son of a renowned king. And where he did his schooling? He did his schooling in the Hindu sacred scriptures. Hindu sacred scriptures. What are the Hindu sacred scriptures? That are Mahabharata and Ramayana. Mahabharata and Ramayana. See, earlier if we talk about, people did not study about science and mathematics much, but they studied Mahabharata and Ramayana, and everything is written there. So he was also like the other princes. He also went to Gurukul and everything, and he studied Mahabharata and Ramayana. And after 4 years, when he returned home, he got married. Okay, he left the home at 12 and he got married at the age of 16. When he came back after 4 years, it means he was 16 years of age. When he got married, they had a son and lived for 10 years as a befitted royalty. Okay, he lived as a befitted royalty after having a son. For 10 years, he lived like a royal person. Just like a royal person, he enjoyed all the luxuries, he enjoyed all the riches, he enjoyed all the comforts that he had, like a prince. Okay, a prince has every luxury. Okay, they do not have any problem, they do not see any suffering in anything. So he was just enjoying his life. He was just a befitted royalty. It means that he used to fit in that royalty. He was just perfect for that royal world. At about the age of 25, the prince heretofore shielded from the sufferings of the world while out hunting chanced upon. Now what happened? You have to study. Now you're going to find out that what really happened. Gautam Buddha at the age of 25, at the age of 25, he was heretofore. Heretofore means before that. Before this particular event that I'm going to tell you, before that particular event, he was just shielded. He was just saved from all the sufferings of the world. Obviously, he lived in a palace. He lived like a king. He lived like a prince, and he had all the worldly pleasures and everything. So he did not see any sufferings. He did not see the pain of people. Now, while out for hunting, one day he went out for hunting and then he chanced upon. Chanced upon means he met a sick man. Okay, he met a sick man, then an aged man, then a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for alms. He was, he was out for just hunting, but he, met 4 kind of people. First of all, he met a sick person. Okay, when he looked at the sick person, he felt very pity for him. Then he saw an aged person. An aged person, he is also like a sick person, and he is also, he is not able to do anything, and he just got worried that, okay, I might also become aged one day. Then he saw funeral procession. Funeral procession, when a person dies, then they take him out to, bury him, or to, anything that is done, the religious rites and everything. And finally, he met a monk. Monk means a sadhu, that the person has renounced the word, and he was asking for alms. Alms means money. Okay, he was asking for money, he was asking for bhiksha, he was basically asking for all the, when poor people ask for money and everything to survive, so that is called alms. So that monk was asking for alms. These sights so moved him that he at once went out in the world to seek enlightenment concerning the sorrows he had witnessed. Now, after witnessing all these things, he was so much touched, he was so much moved. Moved means he became very emotional. He became very emotional. It actually forced him to leave his house. He started thinking that what's happening? What's happening? I have seen so many sorrows. All these things, they moved him so much. They made him so much emotional. He became so much attached to these things that he thought that I need awakening in my life. I am going out to find enlightenment. I want to know the reason behind all these things, why the people are suffering. Sometimes these kind of questions arise in a lot of people's mind, that what is life, what is death, what are these things. He wanted to know about all these things, so he just went out, he just left everything at the age of 25. You must consider this thing, you must learn this thing, that why Gautam Buddha left his home, why he left all the worldly pleasures. He was just living like a prince. Why he left it? So that was the reason. He wandered for 7 years and finally sat down under a peepal tree where he vowed to stay until enlightenment came. He wandered, he went helter-skelter, he went everywhere, okay, and he could not find that salvation. He could not find the enlightenment. And then finally he decided that I'm going to sit under a peepal tree. There was a peepal tree. He just sat, under it, and he was seeking enlightenment. And he had vowed, he promised himself, okay, he promised himself, he took an oath that I'm going to stay here, I'm not going to stand up from here, I'm not going to go anywhere unless and until I find enlightenment. And enlightened after 7 days, he renamed the tree Bodhi tree, the tree of wisdom, and began to teach and share his new understandings. Now, finally, after 7 years, he stayed there for 7 days. In those 7 days, he seeked enlightenment. He got enlightened. He got that awakening, that spiritual awakening. You know what spiritual awakening? Spiritual awakening is that when you get to know all the secrets of the world, when you get to know about what is life, what is death, you know everything. You actually understand a lot of things that people generally do not understand. You know that what is life, what is death, how do we have to cope up with the things. You are going to see, you are going to find out that how he was enlightened. You will just find it out soon. So he just sat there and he renamed the tree Bodhi tree. The tree was called then Bodhi tree. Bodhi tree is also called, it means the tree of wisdom. Okay, the tree of wisdom it was called. And he also started teaching, and he started sharing his knowledge with other people. It means that he started preaching under that very tree. At that point he became known, at that time he was known as Buddha. Then he was called Buddha. Buddha means awakened or enlightened. That person who has, who has awakened, who knows everything. So that is why he was called Buddha. He was called Buddha. Now, the Buddha preached his first sermon at the city of Banaras, most holy of the dipping places on the river Ganges. That sermon had been preserved and is given here. As I told you, that Banaras, which is called the spiritual capital of India, there Ganges flow, the river Ganga flows, and river Ganga is considered to be the holiest of the dipping places. It is considered to be the most holiest of the rivers. It is said that even it is believed that Ganga, originates from heaven. And heaven, and it comes down to earth. So Buddha preached, he gave his first lesson at Banaras, which was the most holy of persons, and that sermon has been preserved and is given here. He used to, give his lectures at Banaras. It reflects the Buddha's wisdom about one inscrutable kind of suffering. Now, it reflected, it actually showed, it reflected means, what it reflected? All his teachings, it reflected about one inscrutable kind of suffering. Inscrutable means that something which cannot be understood. Inscrutable means it's very difficult, very difficult. It's so difficult. He was telling about a suffering that is so difficult that nobody can understand it. It's very difficult for a person to actually understand such kind of a thing, to understand such kind of a suffering, that he started to give the sermon about. He just told a story. He just shared a story there. He just gave a sermon. What usually happens in a sermon. In sermons, the preacher, he starts to, tell a story, because it's very simple to learn through a story. So they generally tell a story. So he started to, tell a story that was about Kisa Gotami. Kisa Gotami had an only son and he died. In her grief, she carried the dead child to all her neighbors, asking them for medicine. And the people said, she has lost her senses. The boy is dead. Now, the Kisa Gotami was a woman. She was a mother, and she was a mother of an only child. She had a son, and that son died. Unfortunately, that son died. When he died, she took that dead son. She took his corpse to each and every of her neighbors, and she asked them that please give me medicine so that I can cure my baby. It means that she was out of her senses. Everybody said that she has lost her senses. It means that she has gone mad. Okay, she has gone mad. She has become crazy because she is asking for medicine for a dead person, and a dead person cannot be, alive. At length, Kisa Gotami met a man who replied to her request, I cannot give thee medicine for thy child, but I know a physician who can. Now, at length means after a long time. After a long time, Kisa Gotami met a man who replied, no, see, this is Old English, so it is being written in Old English. I cannot give thee. Give thee means I cannot give you medicine for thy children. It means for your child. I cannot give you medicine for your child, but I know a physician who can. Physician means a doctor. Now, the man told Kisa Gotami that I know a doctor who can give you the medicine. And the girl said, pray tell me, sir, who is it? And the man replied, go to Sakyamuni, the Buddha. And the girl said, pray. Pray means here, please tell me. Now, obviously, the woman Kisa Gotami was quite desperate, and in her desperation she seeked that which physician are you talking about? I want to take my child there. And the man directed her to Sakyamuni. She said that go to Sakyamuni. Sakyamuni is a Buddha. Kisa Gotami repaired to Buddha and cried, Lord and Master, give me the medicine that will cure my boy. Now Kisa Gotami repaired. Repaired means that she went. Okay, she went crying. She just hurried to Buddha, and there she told Sakyamuni that Lord and Master, she is, desperate. That is why she is saying, Lord and Master, please give me the medicine that will cure my boy. Please give me the medicine that can make my boy alive. He's not feeling well. He's just, he's not waking up. The Buddha answered, I want a handful of mustard seed. And when the girl in her joy promised to procure it, the Buddha added, the mustard seed must be taken from a house where no one has lost a child, husband, parent or friend. As it is very much apparent that why is he asking her so? But still, he wanted her to learn a lot of things. He wanted her to learn a very big secret, we can say. So Sakyamuni told Kisa Gotami, just okay, I will give medicine, but in return of the medicine, I need handful of mustard seeds. You know now what are mustard seeds? Mustard seeds means sarso, the seeds of sarso. He said that I need mustard seeds. You just go out and you collect mustard seeds from people, but you have to collect the mustard seeds from a place, from a house where nobody has died. Neither their husband, their child, their parent, their relative, nobody has died in that place. Nobody, not even their friend has died at that place. You have to collect the mustard seed from such a place. Poor Kisa Gotami now went from house to house. Now that poor, pitiful Kisa Gotami, she went from house to house because she had to collect the seed. And the people pitied her and said, here is mustard seed, take it. Now, obviously, people pitied her. People felt bad for her. Okay, people were feeling bad for her. People thought that, okay, we should help this lady. And they said, here is mustard seed, take it. But when she asked, did a son or daughter or father or mother die in your family? They answered, alas, the living are few, but the few are many, but the dead are many. Do not remind us of our deepest grief. And there was no house, but some beloved one had died in it. Now, as expected, she went to each and every house, and every person felt bad for her, and everybody was able to give, everybody was ready to give her the mustard seed, and people even gave her the mustard seeds. But when she asked, she just remembered that I have to ask them something. She asked that whether has a person died here, son, daughter, or a relative, or a friend, or a parent, and everybody said that yes. The living are few, but the dead are many. This usually happens, a lot of people die, and they are saying that do not remind us of that, that deepest grief. That is our deepest grief. That is our deepest sorrow. Okay, this is our deepest sorrow, because obviously people are reminded, when people are reminded of the people that are dead, of their closed ones, of their loved ones, they are dead, they feel very bad. So that is why they started saying that please do not remind us of that thing. And there was no house, but some beloved one had died in it. There was no house. She could not find any house where the people hadn't died. And, they had not died, and everywhere somebody had died. So Kisa Gotami became very weary and hopeless and sat down at the wayside watching the lights of the city as they flickered up and were extinguished again. Now Kisa Gotami became very weary. She became very tired. She was tired, she was hopeless, she had no hope left, because there was not even a single house where any person hadn't died, and everybody had saw a death. Every house had seen a death. Then at the wayside, then she took a side, then she started, then she sat at one place, and what she started noticing, she saw that the lights were flickering and they were getting extinguished. Flickering means, as the flame of diya or anything, earthen pot or something, because we're talking about a time, we are talking about, a very older times where, electricity wasn't there. So people used to light their houses with the help of a lamp, earthen lamp. So like the lamp, the light of the lamp flickers, it was flickering and then it was extinguishing again. At last, the darkness of the night reigned everywhere. At night, after some time, the whole valley was covered with darkness. There was darkness everywhere. And she considered the fate of men, that their lives flicker up and are extinguished again. And she thought to herself, how selfish am I in my grief? Death is common to all, yet in this valley of desolation there is a path that leads him to immortality, who has surrendered all selfishness. And after looking at all these things, she had a sudden realization. After seeing all these things, she said that at last the darkness, the darkness had reigned everywhere. She was thinking that yes, like this flame is flickering and it is getting extinguished. It is getting, it's extinguishing. Similarly is the fate of men. Similarly, even men, they are born and they are dead. They take birth and they die. It's inevitable. Everybody, takes birth and then they eventually die. And she thought to herself that how selfish am I in my grief? She started to think, she started to, ponder upon her feelings. She started to think that what am I doing? I'm so selfish. I'm only thinking about my own grief. I am not looking at the grief of other people, Yet, she is saying that death is common to all. Death is common to all. Everybody dies. There is not a single person who has not been affected by death. Yet, in this valley of desolation, desolation means sorrow. In this valley of sorrow, there is a path, but still there is a path that leads him to immortality. You know that we are mortals. We are mortals. Mortals are the people like... Human beings are called mortals because everybody dies one day. But still you can become immortal. How you can become immortal? When we have surrendered all selfishness, when we leave all the selfishness behind. Like you can see, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of monks, there are a lot of sadhus who had, left all the selfishness, and now we can say that they are immortal. Like we can say about Sai Baba. Like we can take the example of Sai Baba. Sai Baba was a person who had left all the selfishness behind and he was just living for other people. He had no selfishness in his heart and he is still immortal. He is still being worshipped by all the people because he had no fear in his heart. He was not affected by death and everything. So that is why such kind of people, there can be a lot of other examples as well. Obviously, Mahatma Buddha is the first very big example that is being, explained here. But still, she had understood the real meaning of life. The meaning of life is that, yes, death is common to all and you should not be selfish. You should not only think about your own, pain. The Buddha said, the life of mortals in this world is troubled and brief and combined with pain. For there is not any means by which those have been born can avoid dying after reaching old age. There is death. Of such a nature are living beings. Now he gave a very important lesson. The Buddha said that the life of mortals means life of human beings. Every person who is born will die one day. Okay, every person who is born will die one day, and even in that short span of time, we have such a short life. In that short life, the world is troubled. We are always troubled. We are always in pain, and it is combined with pain. We are, troubled. We have a lot of problems, and in these problems, there is no other way. Okay, there is not any means. There is no other way. There is no alternate where we can escape death. Nobody can escape death. There is nobody who can escape death. You will become old and then eventually you will die. As ripe fruits are early in the danger of falling, so mortals when born are always in danger of death. As all earthen vessels made by the potter end in being broken, so is the life of mortals. As ripe fruits, she is comparing the human beings with ripe fruits. When fruits become ripe, okay, when they are ready, they are ripe, they fall from the tree. They eventually fall from the tree. They're always in the danger of falling. Similarly, when, human beings, they take birth, they can die. They will die. They will die like all the earthen vessels. When potter makes the earthen vessels eventually fall, they break down. Similarly, the human beings also die one day. And this is the biggest reality of life. That is what Gautam Buddha, that is what Sakyamuni was actually trying to explain. Kisa Gotami, who was so much affected by death that she could not see anything, she had lost her senses. Both young and adult, both those who are fools and those who are wise, all fall into the power of death. All are subject to death. Now he also said that both young and adult, it's not like that only old people die. You know, even young people die. Even young people are on the verge of death. Anybody can die. She said that anybody can fall into the power of death. Death is so powerful that it can, you know, take everyone along, and all are subject to death. Of those who overcome by death depart from life. A father cannot save his son, nor kinsmen their relationships. Mark, while relatives are looking on and lamenting deeply, one by one, mortals are carried off like an ox that is led to the slaughter. So the world is afflicted with death and decay. Therefore, the wise do not grieve, knowing the terms of the world. Now, he said that everybody, whether if you are a wise person or if you are a foolish person, everybody dies. You know, there is nobody who can escape death. Even the wisest of the people, they cannot even escape their death. How? He said that everybody who overcome by death, you know, of those who overcome by death depart from life. Those who overcome by death, it means that those who avoid death, they have overcome by life. You know, life takes a toll on them. Life takes a toll on them. For example, there are a lot of old, you know, there are a lot of elderly people who want to die, who are so much frustrated. They keep on avoiding death. They keep on avoiding all the diseases, and they become 100, they are plus 100. But they are taken, you know, life takes a toll on them. You know, life irritates them so much. They want to die. They are so much frustrated by death. And eventually they'll die one day. But still, you know, a father cannot save his son. This is very real. You know, even a father, you know, father is a protector. You know, father takes a vow that I'm always going to save my son, but even a father cannot save his son from death, nor kinsmen, their relationship. Nor kinsmen means the people, nor kinsmen, it means the relatives. You cannot save your relatives. Even the people who are closest to you, they cannot save you. Nobody can save anyone. Mark, while relatives are looking on and lamenting, when they are showing their grief. Lamenting means showing grief. While the relatives are showing their grief deeply on somebody's death. You know, when a mortal is being carried off, whenever there is a funeral procession, when somebody dies, all the relatives come, all the, you know, relatives, they start wailing and they start crying and they start showing their grief. But what happens? And on the same hand, you know, the other person is getting ready to die. No matter how much you cry, no matter how much you wail, you cannot actually, you know, save yourself from death. Death is inevitable. Death can take a toll on you, like an ox that is led to the slaughterhouse. Like an ox, when you take an ox to the slaughterhouse, he's bound to kill. His destiny is that he has to be slaughtered. He cannot avoid his death. Similarly, men cannot escape their death. So the world is afflicted with death and decay. The world is affected basically by death and decay. There's a lot of death and decay in this world. Therefore, the wise thing to do is that you do not grieve, that you do not show your sorrow. You know, when you win over your emotions, in terms, knowing the terms of world, we should know the terms of world. We must know that if a person has come to the, come to the world, he is bound to go. He will definitely leave this world one day. So that is why we should not lament. We should not show our grief. It's not, basically, they do not mean that you should not cry or anything, but you should not even become so much mad that you lose your senses. You should have a control on yourself. That is what they're trying to explain here. Not from weeping, not from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. On the contrary, his pain will be greater and his body will suffer. Sometimes we say na that, please cry. When you'll cry na, then you'll feel better. There are a lot of people who tell you that you just cry. After crying, you'll feel better. But they are saying that after crying, no matter how much you weep, no matter how much you cry, that is going to affect you even more. Okay, no matter how much you cry, on the contrary means on the opposite is going to happen. You are going to suffer, and when you are going to suffer, when you are going to emotionally suffer, your body will suffer. It is said that, our emotions are controlled. Emotions control our body. If you're not mentally stable, then your body is also not stable. If you're not mentally stable, you are not physically stable. So that is why this thing happens, and his body will suffer. He will make himself sick and pale. You will make yourself sick and pale. There are a lot of people where we can see that if they have lost their close one, if they have lost their very loved one. So they start, showing a lot of pain, and they become sick and pale. Yet the dead are not saved by his lamentation. No matter how much you cry, you cannot save the person. You cannot bring back the person. As you know, the same thing happens when somebody cries, and you are consoling them. You say this thing now, that no matter how much you cry, he's not going to come back. He is not going to come back. So there is no point of lamentation. Lamentation means no matter how much you show your sorrow, no matter how much you cry, no matter how much you show your grief, he is not going to come back, because it is inevitable. He who seeks peace should draw out the arrow of lamentation and complaint and grief. He who has drawn out the arrow and has become composed will obtain peace of mind. He who has overcome all sorrow will become free from sorrow and will be blessed. They are telling you the mantra of life. He who seeks peace. If you want peace in your life, if you want that your life should go peacefully after death of someone, then you should realize that you have to, draw out the arrow. There is an arrow of, pain in your chest. You have to draw out that arrow from your chest, and then you will feel better. Okay, then you will feel better. You should not complain, you should not cry, you should just try to understand that this is how world works. Okay, this is what you have to try, that this is how world basically works. You have to compose yourself, you have to obtain peace and sorrow after overcoming all sorrow. This way you are going to overcome all sorrow, all the pain in your life, and you will become free of sorrow and you will be blessed. So he is basically telling the mantra to be blessed. If you want to be blessed from, if you want that there is peace in your life, then you should not actually grieve. You should not lament. You should not keep on lamenting. Obviously, it can be for a certain amount of time, but you should not continue doing so, because eventually it is going to mentally be, it is going to take toll on your mental health and eventually your physical health. So it is very much important to be blessed. It is very much important to move out of the sorrow. It is very important to go on. You say na, it's said na, that life goes on. There is a phrase called that life goes on and you move on. Life goes on and you move on. Life will continue. No matter how much you cry, no matter what you do, life goes on, and then you should also move on. You should also move on. That is what is going to help you. So this is what is being explained in this particular chapter. Now let's come to the important points of the chapter. Okay. Important key points. Now, this is a story about a great saint, Gautam Buddha, who was born in a royal family. So it's about Gautam Buddha, as we already know, who was born in a royal family. He was born with all the worldly pleasures. He had all the things available. Till about the age of 25, he was shielded from the sufferings of the world. At still the age of 25, he used to live in his palace and he was free from all these sufferings. He was free from all these sorrows of the world. He was just saved from all these sorrows. One day he happened to see a sick man, then an aged man, then a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for alms. So he saw a sick person, then an aged person, then a funeral procession, and in the end a monk begging for alms. Okay. He was moved by the sufferings of others. He left his wife, child, palace, and all the worldly pleasures in search of enlightenment. After he saw all those things, he was so much moved. He became so much emotional that he said that I'm going to renounce everything. I'm just going to leave my wife, my child, palace and everything, and I'm going to seek enlightenment. I'm going to go and find enlightenment. Enlightened after 7 days, he began to teach and to share his new understandings. He was enlightened after 7 days. First of all, he wandered for 7 years. Helter-skelter, he went everywhere. He wandered everywhere. But finally, he found peace under a Bodhi tree, under a people tree, whom, he renamed the tree as the Bodhi tree, which is called also the tree of wisdom. Now, once a woman, Kisa Gotami, came to him after the demise of her son, Gautam Buddha advised her to request people to give her mustard seeds only if nobody died in her family. As we already know, that Kisa Gotami, she went home after home and she was searching for mustard seeds because, Sakya Muni, he told him that I can give you the medicine to cure your son only if you, bring mustard seeds from, people's house where nobody has died. And finally, when Gautami could not get such a house, she was not able to find such a house, she understood the secret of life and death. So basically, it's all about understanding the secret of life and death. When she saw that there is no family which is being affected by death, everybody was affected by death, everybody was crying, and everybody, she thought to herself that how selfish am I? I'm only thinking about my own grief, I'm not thinking about anybody else. That is when she realized, that is when she knew the secret of life and death, that any person who is born is bound to die. Death cannot be avoided. Death is inevitable. Now in the end, yes, it's your homework. Not from weeping, from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. This is a line from your chapter. If you had to use the message of the given quote from the Buddha's sermon, the sermon at Banaras, to help the boy cope up with the loss of his ball and what it signifies, the ball poem, what could you include in your advice? Okay. Also evaluate why it might be difficult for him to understand the notion. See, as you can see, that in your sample paper you have come across a lot of questions where two chapters are being linked with each other. Here a chapter and a poem has been linked. The characters are going to meet each other. So here the characters are not going to meet, but you have to actually understand that you have understood everything after reading this chapter. You have got to know, you have got the secret, you understood the message that Buddha's sermon is actually trying to give you, that no matter how much you cry, you will never obtain peace. You will never obtain peace. You will not obtain peace from grieving. So you have to make this thing understand to the boy who has lost his ball. We read the ball poem. In the ball poem, the boy had lost his ball, and that the ball signified what it signifies. They are saying that what it signifies, not only the ball, but you have to see that it signified his whole childhood. Okay, it signified his whole childhood, his emotions that were linked to that ball. So you have to make him understand by explaining him how you're going to advise him. How you're going to advise him. That is what they're trying to ask, that what would you include in your advice, how you're going to explain it. Also evaluate why is it difficult to explain this to him. They're also saying that it is difficult for you to explain to the boy that has lost his ball. The reason behind that is what? The reason behind that is that the boy is very young. That the boy is very young and he had sensed his first responsibility. It is the first time that he has lost something. So it's very difficult. It would be difficult to explain him since he is very, young. So that is why it would be difficult to explain him. Now this is up to you. If you have understood this chapter very well, you will be able to give an advice to him. So you just have to work upon this question. You have to work upon this homework. You just try to understand that how you're going to solve this question. Okay. First of all, you have to make yourself understand the real message behind this chapter, the real message that was being hidden in this chapter. You have to understand it. And once you understand it, you make this little boy understand. Okay, I hope that the chapter was clear to you. I hope that you loved the chapter. I hope that you got the idea, the message behind this chapter. And we'll meet in the next video. Till then, thank you. Take care so much. Bye-bye, children.